Welcome in, everyone, to Spiritual Roots Podcast with me, Misty, where we talk about life, the magical, mundane, and everything in between. I hope you're all doing well today. Thank you so much for being with me. I greatly appreciate it. Today, we are going to be talking about Goody Cole. The first time I ever heard about Goody Cole, I was out to dinner with my husband at a restaurant in Brentwood, New Hampshire, named Goody Cole's Smokehouse and Catering. I still don't know why they're named this, but they're Texas barbecue, really good food. As we were sitting down at our meal, I noticed a small picture on the wall, and it turned out it was the story of Goody Cole. I was intrigued because it's a local woman in New Hampshire accused of witchcraft. I do admit, after our visit, it did slip from my memory, but recently her name has been coming up, and I took it as a synchronicity and decided to do some research. And what I found is there's not a lot known about her, such as her life before coming to the colonies, or even her surname, but her story is one for the books just the same. So, my friends, let's get into the story of Goody Cole, the Witch of New Hampshire. Grab a cup of tea and light a candle for Goody Cole if you're able, because today we're traveling back in time to colonial New England, into the world of superstition, survival, and suspicion. Our story centers on a woman who became one of the most infamous accused witches in the region, Eunice Goody Cole, remembered in history as the Witch of Hampton, New Hampshire. Unlike many victims of witch trials, Goody Cole was never executed, but her story is no less haunting. Her life reveals how fear, poverty, and religious beliefs could shape a community and destroy the reputation of a woman who may simply have been different. And remarkably, more than 200 years after her death, the town that condemned her tried to make things right. Eunice Cole was born around 1590 in England during a time when belief in witchcraft was widespread through Europe. This was the era of the infamous demonology written by James IV and I, which argued that witches were real servants of the devil and should be punished harshly. Books like this helped spread fear of witchcraft across the English-speaking world. Little is known about Eunice's early life, but records suggest she married a man named William Cole. Like many seeking opportunity in the New World, the couple eventually left England and crossed the Atlantic. They settled in a Puritan colony of Hampton, New Hampshire, a small coastal settlement founded in 1638. Life in early New England was difficult, and it still can be, folks. Don't let that fool you, the time frame. Winters were harsh, food could be scarce, and communities were tightly knit, meaning anyone who didn't quite fit in could quickly become a target. Sound familiar? Unfortunately for Eunice Cole, she would become exactly that. By the mid-1600s, Eunice and William Cole had developed a reputation within their community. They were poor, argumentative, and frequently involved in disputes with neighbors. Records suggest that the couple sometimes relied on town charity to survive, something that often carried social stigma in Puritan society. Eunice herself was known for speaking her mind, something that was rarely tolerated in women at the time. Over the years, strange misfortunes began to be blamed on her. If a cow died, if the milk spoiled, if a child fell ill, some in the community whispered that Goody Cole had cursed them. The title Goody, short for good wife, was simply a common term for married women. But when paired with accusations of witchcraft, Goody Cole became a name spoken with suspicion and fear. In 1656, Eunice Cole was formally accused of witchcraft for the first time. Neighbors claimed that she had caused illness and bad luck through supernatural means. At the time, belief in witches was deeply intertwined with religion. Puritans believed the devil could work through people to harm the faithful. Eunice was brought before local authorities in Hampton, New Hampshire, and examined. The evidence against her was thin, mostly based on rumors and misfortunes, but suspicion alone could be enough. She was briefly imprisoned and forced to live under the cloud of accusation. For the next several decades, Eunice Cole remained a controversial figure in Hampton. More accusations surfaced in the 1660s and again in the 1670s. Each time something unexplained happened in the town, her name resurfaced. she became something of a local scapegoat, the person blamed whenever fear needed a target. One of the most notable accusations involved a neighbor who claimed that after arguing with Goody Cole, his beer mysteriously soured and his livestock fell ill. Today, we might see this as coincidence, but in the 17th century, it looked like evidence of witchcraft. And this is a very familiar story if anyone is familiar with the burning times in Europe, the Salem witch trials, which I do bring up in just a minute. But it's wild to me, and it would be a fearful time to be a woman back then, I would think. Or, even a man if you were of poor means. Anything could be blamed on you if you didn't have some type of status or you weren't wealthy. You didn't have any means to you to even defend yourself in court. And that's just really sad to me. I love history, and this stuff just intrigues me, because even though sometimes it feels like we haven't come so far in the times that we're in, we have come far, even though sometimes it feels like we've taken a few steps back. But overall, I think we've made a lot of leaps and bounds. 1673, accusations intensified. Eunice Cole was arrested again and sent to jail in Boston, where she remained imprisoned for nearly 2 years. While she was never formally convicted of witchcraft, the court declared her a suspicious person, required her to live under supervision once released. 17th century probation, folks. Imagine what that must have been like, returning to a town where many neighbors already believed you were dangerous. Even after her release, the suspicion never truly faded. Eunice Cole died around 1680 at around 90 years old, an unusually long life for the time. But even death did not bring peace to her reputation. According to local legend, townspeople feared her spirit would haunt the community. Some stories claim that after she was buried in Hampton, New Hampshire, a stake was driven through her heart to keep her from rising again. That's terrible. And you die peacefully. Well, not peacefully, obviously. She had a lot of adversity, but just to put the nail in the coffin, just shove a stake through her heart because you believe that she's such an evil person. Whether or not the story is true, it reflects the deep fear that surrounded her name. For generations afterward, people in the area continued telling tales about Goody Cole, the witch. Just over a decade after Eunice Cole's death, the infamous Salem trials would erupt in neighboring Massachusetts. Dozens were accused. 25 were either executed or died in prison. Bridget Bishop, Sarah Good, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Wilds, Reverend George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, George Jacobs Sr., John Proctor, John Willard, Martha Corey, Mary Esty, Ann Puditer, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, Alice Parker, Mary Parker, Wilmot Red, Margaret Scott, Samuel Wardwell Sr., Mary Bradbury, Giles Corey, Lydia Dustin, Ann Foster, Sarah Osborne, and Roger Toothaker. Looking back, historians now see Goody Cole's story as part of the same pattern. A culture where fear, suspicion, social tensions could easily turn into accusations of witchcraft. But Eunice Cole's story has one twist that makes it especially remarkable. More than 250 years after her death, the town that once feared her decided to revisit her story. In 1938, the Society in Hampton for Apprehension of those falsely accusing Eunice Goody Cole of having had familiarity with the devil was formed. That's quite the title. And they had posters that they made up I've seen pictures when I was doing research, and I will post some of the websites that I use for reference. I'll try to get some pictures posted up either in the show notes or over on my Patreon. During the celebrations, residents reflected on the history of their community, including the tragic story of Goody Cole. Local historians argued that Eunice Cole had likely been an innocent woman who simply didn't fit into the strict expectations of Puritan society. So the town, in a public event, symbolically restored her reputation by burning copies of her court records and restoring her citizenship, acknowledging that the accusations against her had been unjust. The ashes of the court documents were supposed to be buried under a future memorial, but due to a terrible hurricane that year, those plans were halted. The ashes are now located inside the Tuck Museum, which is next to where her memorial is, I believe. There are rumors that for years after this event took place, the ghost of Eunice Goody Cole has been seen around the area. There is a side note to that. Even though they did restore her citizenship, I did read that they were unable to restore her land and her name, which was sad to me. It was a small act of historical healing, but an important one. After centuries of being remembered as a witch, Goody Cole was finally recognized as something else. A woman who had been wronged by fear and misunderstanding. Today, the story of Eunice Goody Cole is an important reminder of how easily communities can turn against someone who is different. And that is very powerful to me as a statement because it is still true today. Hundreds and hundreds of years later, that statement is still very much true. Her life reflects the realities of colonial America: poverty, strict religious beliefs, and a deep fear of the unknown. But it also reminds us that history can be revisited. Even centuries later, communities can acknowledge past mistakes. And sometimes, long after the accusations fade, a name can finally be restored. In 1963, a memorial stone produced by Harold Fernald of Hampton, New Hampshire, was erected in her honor, located on what is thought to be Goody Cole's property, which was taken away from her while Eunice was imprisoned and the money was used to care for her ailing husband. The memorial is located at 40 Park Avenue in Hampton, New Hampshire. I will, put that information in the show notes. I know for me personally, I'm going to go down and take a visit and look around. I really love history. And Goody Cole's story is a part of our history, and I wanted to bring it to light, even though there's been many stories told. Our local news station, WMUR, did a piece. I will link that as well. They do something called New Hampshire Chronicle, and they did a piece on her. I believe they go to the spot where she may have died, and it's good information and good local lore, and I just love this stuff. So as we close the story of Goody Cole, we're left with a quiet question that lingers across time. How often has fear shaped what we believed about others? Eunice Cole lived in a world where being different, outspoken, or simply misunderstood could turn a person into a target. Her story isn't just about witchcraft, it's about the human tendency to explain the unknown by placing blame. And yet centuries later, her name was given back its dignity. There's something powerful in that, very powerful in that. A reminder that truth can outlast fear, that justice, even delayed, still matters, and that every story has more than one side. So tonight, as you sit with this history, maybe take a moment to reflect, light a candle, like I said in the beginning. Let's light a candle for Eunice, for all of the people accused for things that are unexplainable, because they are different, because they are outspoken. For all the people accused of witchcraft in Europe, let's just take a moment and light a candle, if you will, if you're called, and just take a moment to reflect. because it's very powerful if you sit with it and think about it. If you ever go to Salem, Massachusetts and visit a memorial, that's a very moving place. We often leave offerings on each stone. It's a very peaceful place to remember. It's a beautiful piece of history there. Where in your own life can you choose understanding over assumption? Because sometimes the real magic is compassion. That is all I have for you, my friends. Thank you so much for coming along for this ride with me today, learning a little bit about Eunice, Goody Cole, some history about New Hampshire. It wasn't just Massachusetts. It wasn't just Europe. It did spread, and false accusations of such things can be so harmful. Like I had mentioned earlier, justice, even delayed, still matters. Thanks for coming along for the ride, travelers. If you're enjoying the show, please share, like, or leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, or come join me over on Patreon, where you'll get show updates and have early access to new episodes every Thursday. You can also find me on Buy Me a Coffee. If you have ideas for the show or would like to say hello, you can email me at spiritualrootspodcast@gmail.com. Please keep sharing the show so we can keep finding our spiritual roots together.